10 o'clock, a beautiful Tuesday here in Birmingham in downtown Homewood. In fact, right next to City Hall, live from Social Taco in Homewood, it's Landry and Pat, Molly Conrad, right here on a Taco Tuesday. We're here in the Terrace. The mayor, Don Don, is already here, Pat, but a lot to talk about. It was a reaction Monday, and then even more reaction with the news that we got later on in the show with one Bruce Pearl stepping down after 11 seasons at Auburn.
Yeah, that continues to be a big story nationally speaking. Out after 11 seasons as the head coach of the Auburn basketball program. And then, of course, as expected, his son Steven signed a 5-year contract. He is the new head coach. I thought the video was tremendous that Auburn released yesterday. Very moving tribute to Bruce Pearl as he was handing over the reins of the basketball program to his son, Stephen Pearl. So Bruce went 246 wins. That is the most ever in the history of Auburn basketball, 2 Final Fours. So goes without saying the college basketball world was a little bit shocked by the announcement, but we weren't because we knew that this succession plan was in line for many years, and it was just whenever Bruce decided this was the time for me to step down, this was going to hand over to Stephen, and that's what they did.
We have had some very accomplished basketball coaches here in the state of Alabama, but I would say Bruce Pearl right now at the moment, retiring the most accomplished that we've seen here in this state.
Yeah, absolutely. The 2 Final Fours, without question. His resume is pretty awesome. Goes without saying. So good for Bruce. Not a lot of times in your career, whether you're Nick Saban or Bruce Pearl, that you can go out on your own terms, and that's exactly what he did yesterday. Also, last night, how about that Monday Night Football game? That was something else. Molly's over here wearing her Honolulu blue. She's pretty happy today.
Yeah, and I got my sweatshirt from Steve, so thank you. Go Lions.
Steve from Tuscaloosa.
Very happy.
The hoodie he gave you. Just an impressive performance. They just took it to the Ravens.
Yeah.
38-30. Lamar Jackson was sacked 7 times.
That's right.
But the other stat that's just crazy, the Lions pressured the Ravens 30 times last night. I mean, you want to talk about making things uncomfortable for Lamar Jackson in that offense. That's exactly what they did, and not to mention the fact that Montgomery ran for 151, and they had their way running the ball.
See, and I guess this just goes to show people that we're okay without Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Well, we'll be okay.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks, pretty impressive, the number of points you put up against the Bears and against the Ravens, and now you have to look at the situation with the Ravens. They're sitting there at 1-2.
Hard to believe.
Just like the Chiefs, and they're about to play each other.
What was remarkable to me is early in that game, you have the Lions that go up 7-0, and then Derrick Henry breaks off that long run, and you thought, all right, well, if it's going to be a heavy dose of Henry, and on that same drive you saw Lamar Jackson have success with his legs, this is not good for the Lions. But after that point, and of course the fumble woes continue for Derrick Henry, but after that point it was a good job of the Lions of shutting down that rushing attack. Yeah,
you just wonder if all of a sudden Derrick Henry, who has never had an issue fumbling the football, but this year for the Ravens it has been a problem.
It cost him at least one game. You can make the argument a couple of games.
Yeah, sure did. And I was listening to Harbaugh's press conference. Man, it's just hard to believe that him and Jim are brothers.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just the dichotomy between the two.
It's kind of like Dennis and Randy Quaid.
That's a great point.
How are those guys brothers?
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, I mean, watching John last night after the game, he was answering questions. He didn't make you think like going through these mental hoops to try to figure out what he was talking about. It was refreshing. And then you get his brother, and it's just like...
Well, but I do want to remind you the medical history of Jim Harbaugh. He was hit apparently by a mail truck when he was a kid.
Is that what started it all?
I don't know, but they talk about that being a significant part of his early childhood, and I don't know if that has something to do with it or not. But
yeah,
I like to remind myself of that when I hear a comment.
I did not know about the mail truck.
Yeah.
Never
heard
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good to have the ACC come to the party. This was announced yesterday afternoon that Jim Phillips and the ACC, they have now adopted the exact policy that the SEC had, except not the part about playing Notre Dame because they already play Notre Dame. But the move in which they're going to go to 10 Power 4 games, but they're going to adopt a 9-game conference schedule. So now every Power 4 league will have a 9-game conference schedule. So applause everywhere for the SEC and the ACC now being on the same level playing field as the Big 12 and the Big 10.
So this is one more thing that we don't have to discuss. We don't have to talk about, right? We can move forward and hopefully decide on a format and how we're going to do it.
Yep. Huge game. Big game for the Alabama Crimson Tide coming up this Saturday between the Hedges in Athens, Georgia. Our man, Mike Griffith, the real estate mogul that he is on the Gulf of America, also writes for the AJC and DogNation.com. He joins us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you.
You didn't like my intro, the real estate mogul from Gulf of America? You didn't like that?
I've spent 38 years trying to be the best sports writer I could be. I kind of look at it like building birdhouses or something, kind of a hobby, But this is the real deal, man. It's a big game. I mean, this is one that I think Hugh's got to have after that game at Oklahoma. I mean, A&M's a tough place to play, guys. But
so you're just pivoting to Auburn. You're not talking about the big Alabama-Georgia game. You want to talk about that game first. Okay.
Oh, I thought that was the game you were talking to. Okay. Oh, you.
So it's not a big game. So you're telling us that the Georgia-Alabama game is not a very big game according to the Georgia people,
I mean,
right?
I just think you got two playoff teams, playing, and it might see each other again in the playoff. Obviously it's big, and so much rides, with Alabama's momentum and what Ty Simpson's done of late. You got to give Kalen DeBoer credit for getting this team, calibrated. Granted, Wisconsin's not, it's not Barry Alvarez on the sideline. They're not going to the Rose Bowl this year, but still, to get the team back together, you got a couple, really key players coming back. Don't know the extent of their health, but we know they're going to play. You got Georgia with some streaks on the line. Obviously, a 33-game home win streak. Kirby's never lost under the lights. Well documented. He's 1-6 against Alabama. Never got to play the Tide between the hedges. There's so many storylines. Gunnar Stockton versus Ty Simpson. Who takes the next step? At the end of the day, though, it's the SEC is so good that, and this game is very big, but there's a lot of big games this year, and this is going to be a special one under the lights. Though there's no doubt. I think this one has all the markings of a game that we would expect to be a classic.
Tough question, not meant to be unfair, but Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson, the quarterback comparison, based on what you've seen, who right now, if you're choosing a quarterback, you're starting a team, who are you tapping?
I mean, it depends on the supporting cast and what I'm trying to do. I mean, obviously Ty Simpson has got mobility too. I mean, he's not Jalen Milroe. I don't know who is. I mean, that guy was freakishly athletic and extremely gifted runner. But Ty Simpson has good mobility, and he's throwing the ball well, and he's got two dynamic receivers. Georgia has one, I think, with Branch. Bernard and Williams. He's only 18, but you got two super talented receivers working with Ty, and on the road. Now they've been in a hostile environment before. That's going to help. They've had to communicate under difficult circumstance. I think that's an advantage for Alabama that they played that, even though it was a loss. I think it was a valuable game to play early with a new quarterback. And, Ryan Grubb's settling in now. He's seen this team play 3 games. You can learn a lot from your team internally, but I think, game day Saturdays, you really learn a lot. Georgia has one game like that. I mean, it almost felt like 4 games in one against Tennessee. So both of these coaching staffs have a lot of film to work with. They both have issues. Georgia's got some injury issues on the right side of their offensive line. We've talked about the Alabama players returning. We don't know the extent of their health. Are they going to be 100%? It's not a video game. Just hit the restart button and they're 100. This is a pretty quick comeback from tightrope surgery for the tackle. And, collarbone's a pretty serious injury if you're a running back. I mean, you're talking about some brick wall runs here, and this is a tough guy that likes to run that way. Can he be Brian Robinson and play with those sort of injuries like Brian did? That guy was tough as nails. So, it's a defining game. It's exciting to talk about it. But ultimately, I think this game comes down to mistakes and turnovers. And I think one thing that Alabama's done a really good job with to this point is they have not turned the ball over.
Mike Griffith joins us from the AJC, DogNation.com, joins us on the Higginbotham hotline. So let's talk about the running game for the Georgia Bulldogs. I was impressed. When they wanted to run the football, and they did it effectively, against Tennessee, and that is one area that Alabama fans worry about is the defensive interior line for the Alabama Crimson Tide. How important do you think that's going to be in regards to the play, I guess the script that Kirby and Bobo is going to go maybe attack Alabama with the running game, or you think it's going to be a lot more of Gunnar Stockton throwing the ball against Alabama?
Well, I don't think Kirby wants to win games 44-41. I don't think that's going to be the formula for success. Tennessee, could be a playoff team, but they're not exactly the steel curtain on defense, right? And not that Alabama is, but I think Alabama probably has more talent. So I think for Georgia, the key offensively is the run game. And Kirby told us at the start of the year that, they're going to need to create some things off play action. They're going to need to stay ahead of the sticks and avoid the sort of catastrophic plays that we've seen hurt Georgia. I mean, you think back to the Notre Dame game and the strip sack on Gunnar near the end of the first half that really kind of gave the Irish the momentum that they needed, and then, of course, they returned to kick start the second half. But that was a really, really big play that gave the Irish a pretty solid lead at halftime and really kind of changed a lot of the game planning going on, I think. And you need to avoid that if you're Georgia. And the way to avoid that is to stay ahead of the chains and stay out of down and distance. And the way to do that is to run the ball effectively on first and second down, or to be very efficient with your pass game. You look at Gunnar Stockton's passing yardage against Tennessee. I think about 2/3 of it came at or behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of it was yards after the catch, right? Whereas I look at Alabama as a much more vertical passing game. And so I think the key for Alabama is the pass protection. Georgia was not able to get to Joey at Tennessee. They only had one sack. And that enabled him to set up and get the ball downfield and make some big plays. And so Georgia has to create some havoc. And that means stopping Alabama on down and distance early on run game and getting them into some third down situations. And then winning on the edge. Georgia's got 6 of the 7 guys that were in their front 7 last year in the NFL right now. They had 2 first-rounders that aren't there anymore, Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams, and they don't have guys that can replicate that, not as of yet. They got some freakish guys that are going to emerge and be household names, but are they ready? This is the kind of game where Georgia needs to create some havoc, because if you give Ty Simpson time, I think he's proven he can be pretty accurate.
Mike Griffith, DogNation.com and the AJC, joining us as all of our guests do on the Higginbotham Hotline. I know it's coach speak, and Kirby might not address it in a press conference. Probably no coach would, by saying, it's a new team, it's a new year. But how much do you believe that Kirby Smart uses maybe last year's matchup at Bryant-Denny as motivation for his team?
Well, I mean, I think, it goes without saying, but, 54% of these guys never faced a Nick Saban Alabama team. 54% of these guys had never played in Neyland Stadium. I think all the motivation the defense needs is, realizing that if that field goal is good, they lose to Tennessee. They gave up 21 points and over 200 yards passing in the first quarter against Tennessee. In the previous 3 games, Tennessee quarterbacks didn't throw a touchdown pass or throw for 200 yards. And Tennessee did it in 1 quarter this year. So that's all the motivation you need. I don't think it resonates as much with players as it does fans and analysts like us, that's, oh boy, Alabama's really got Kirby's number. They won 6 out of 7. We know there's no carryover. Probably less now than ever, especially with the portal, and especially with the schedule. This is a big game, but boy, Alabama LSU is going to be a big game too. So is Alabama Auburn, so is Georgia Texas, and so is Georgia Ole Miss. And again, I'm not downplaying it, but we need to keep it into perspective. It doesn't have the end of the world feel that a lot of those games did. I mean, my goodness, Stetson Bennett was beating Alabama at halftime in 2020. Did that really happen? It did. A walk-on was beating a team with 3 out of the 5 Heisman Trophy finalists, eventual national. So anything can happen. We're gonna make a read on this game. We're gonna have some takeaways. I think for Kalen, I think it's a more important game for Alabama. I hope that's not oversimplifying, but I'd say even beyond the season, I think in the future of Kalen DeBoer. Look, this is a really good coach. There's no doubt, but he stepped into an impossible situation. Not only did he take over for a 7-time champion, but he didn't have the same roster. I mean, what would Nick Saban do with this roster? Take away the players that transferred when Nick left. Let's just say Nick decided in May that he wanted to come back, and all these guys were gone. How would that team have looked? I mean, it's a different team. It's a different culture, and it takes time, especially when someone's been there and done it as well as Nick. I mean, you don't just, flip a switch. It's like, you've been driving a Porsche for 17 years, and, someone went out and, got an Audi or something. And that Audi's a good car, but it ain't that. So I feel like that a lot is on Kalen DeBoer. I think a lot about his future, for him to stay in Tuscaloosa. I think these are the kind of games you got to win, and you got to stay in contention. If Alabama misses the playoff again, I think you got to look at the possibility that maybe, there's a mutual parting of the ways, and nothing personal. But being the next guy, I mean, show me somebody that's replaced a legend. I mean, look in Alabama history. Look at the coaches after Paul Bear Bryant. It was 3 coaches later with Gene Stallings before they really got the mojo back.
Yeah.
Look at Florida, Steve Spurrier. And sometimes, and now in this day and age with the NIL and where Alabama stands, where, Ohio State's able to buy players from you and Michigan's able to buy key players for you, it's just not the same.
Mike, can we hold you for another quick segment?
Sure,
Is that
yeah,
okay?
sure.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. Listen,
I
I want to be clear, though. Let me just say, I'm not writing this guy's obituary.
No,
I
I
think
understand.
Kalen DeBoer's a hell of a coach. You know that.
Yeah.
I still think they're a playoff team, win, lose, or draw.
Sure.
I'm just saying that this game has big implications.
Absolutely. All right.
But yeah,
we will continue with Mike Griffin to get his thought about Auburn and Oklahoma and moving forward in the SEC. This is 3-Man Front. We're live at Social Taco on Jocks. It is 10:20. Welcome back. We're live at Social Taco. Doors will officially open at 11 o'clock. Come on by and see us. Mike Griffith joins us from the AJCDogNation.com as he does each and every Tuesday. Mike, before we pivot away from the Alabama-Georgia game and talk about the other issues going on around the SEC, I wanted to ask you, I know it's Tuesday, but do you have a lean right now? Not asking you who's going to win or who's going to lose, but how you think this game's going to be portrayed in regards to the final score. Is this going to be a shootout like we saw in Neyland, or is this going to be a more slobber knocker, maybe a 3-point game in the fourth quarter?
Well, just basing it on the last two games in Sanford Stadium of this sort of magnitude, which would be 2022 Tennessee, two number one teams, and 2019 Notre Dame under the lights. The crowd really played a big role, and I think it's a game played in the high 20s. Kind of has a 29-26, 27-24, 31-27 feel to it. I don't think we'll see quite as many points. I do think both teams will have turnovers. I wouldn't be surprised if special teams made an appearance in here somewhere, one way or another. I think it's going to be one of those games got a little bit of something for everybody. The defenses are going to have their moments. There's been time to adjust now and coach them up. So I think it's a one-possession game, and I think it's going to come down to mistakes.
Mike, would love to get a quick reaction what you saw with Auburn and Oklahoma and Norman this past weekend, and then give us your thoughts initially on the Tigers traveling to College Station to take on Texas A&M.
Well, just a really tough pill if you're Auburn. Home field's big, and you hate to see calls. I'm a big believer in the butterfly effect, right? I think something happens and something else happens or doesn't happen, and you just can't ignore, that there were a couple of moments in that game that went against Auburn. Now you'll hear plenty of teams, including Georgia, Tennessee, teams I've covered, will tell you that Jordan Hare's no picnic, and things have a way of happening in that stadium too. Which is not to say that makes it okay. It doesn't, but it's life in the SEC, and when you go on the road, crap happens, right? It just does. I don't think anybody had any intent, but say this. Those are two really good football teams. Brent Venables has done a great job. He's had to weather the storm, and they got a transfer quarterback in there that played well enough. Jackson Arnold, he was a soldier. The guy took a lot of hits, man. He laid it on the line. So now we find out not just about Auburn's character and toughness, because I think they have that, but A&M, two things. That is, you want to talk about a tough place to play. Geez, oh Pete. What do they got, 106, 104? The giant stadium, just looks supersized. And a team coming off a really big win at Notre Dame, a tough team to defend, a good football coach. So, Auburn can be doing everything right and not win that game, because welcome to the SEC. It's a tough draw to have to play those kind of games back-to-back. I'm not giving up the ghost on Auburn. I still think, there's an outside shot for a playoff. I still think it's a 8 or 9 win team if they keep the quarterback healthy and the team headed in the right direction. It's a tough early draw.
Mike, in regards to the officiating situation that took place in Oklahoma, you and I both have been covering this league for over 30 years. I'm just curious, do you ever remember the SEC coming out, whether it's a public statement now with social media, coming out and basically publicly reprimanding the officiating crew on an SEC game?
I'm sure there's an instance of it. It doesn't happen often, but we are in an era of accountability, and I think Greg Sankey does a great job with that. I think he's as upfront and straightforward as any commissioner that I've ever covered. They did it because it was the right thing to do, and I think you applaud the league office for that. Now, whether it's happened before or not, there have been instances where they should have, probably. But, I like where Greg Sankey is at as far as the transparency that he works with, the integrity that he operates with, and I applaud them for that. I know it's pours a little salt in the wound, but that's Greg Sankey doing the right thing for the right reasons, and I think it speaks well for this league.
Mike, a guy that you covered while he was at Tennessee, a guy that you have a lot of respect for, Auburn basketball coach Bruce Pearl announcing his retirement yesterday. Your thoughts on the career of one Bruce Pearl?
Amazing, underrated, doesn't get nearly the credit that he deserves, never has. I think Auburn has taken good care of him. And I think Alabama fans in the state, Alabama and Auburn, I think they understand what Bruce did there. And I think it's a regional story when he should be a national story. I think he's as good as any coach in college basketball over the last 20 years. I'd put him in the top 2 or 3 easily. When you look at what he did and where he did it and the circumstances he took over at Tennessee and Auburn, even earlier in his career, what he did at Southern Indiana. I mean, this is a championship coach. And, he made basketball better. His teams played hard. They played for him. They loved him. That's what you want in your coach. He marketed his program. He drew his fan base close together. He embraced the traditions at these schools. And he, if you were a fan of Auburn or Tennessee basketball, he was an easy guy to root for. And if you weren't a fan of those programs, maybe you didn't understand it, but you had to respect the way his teams played. And, I walked out of the State Farm Arena with him after they beat Michigan State. I'd played it up big, that it was the Bruce Pearl revenge tour. Some of these teams that, Michigan and Michigan State that had ended some tournament runs of his teams before, and of course he downplayed it. But I say, I'm going with this storyline. I'm just telling you, you're getting these guys back. And of course I covered Tom Izzo, so that was kind of special for me to cover that game and those coaches, and more alike than either one of them probably want to admit, even though they, different flavors, but the same styles of coach in terms of hard-nosed basketball and players that play for you and know what they're signing up for. But I walked out with him and Steven, and Bruce had the net around his neck, and he says, you've been there, Mike. You've seen all the big ones. And I said, yeah, I missed a lot at Auburn, obviously in between, but to be there for that, And looking back, when I heard the announcement, I kind of reflected back and said, that was a moment of reflection that was premature. He was still in the tournament. Why is he telling me this? Obviously, there was probably some thought that this could happen. Now, a lot of things probably had to – I don't think he knew. I don't think he misled anyone, but I think it was something that was being considered, certainly over the last couple of years. And look, this is a demanding – game, sport, and Bruce coaches with his heart. Literally the guy sweats through. I mean, he just leaves it all out there on the floor. And I know he's a coach, and it's really the players, but you watch him coach, and he's living every second of that game, and it's a lot on a guy that age. It just is. And I'm not saying I don't necessarily think there's any health issues or anything like that. It's got to take a lot out of you. And if there's other things that Bruce wants to do in his life, the sort of visionary that he is, he's still got time to do them. And I don't know about this political arena talk. I've never really talked to him about that. Certainly we all observe it. But if Bruce Pearl could change the basketball world, why not change the world? I mean, he's got a religion that he holds very close, and, he's very outward with, I suppose. He's got strong feelings, and if he thinks he can make the world a better place, all the power to him. I mean, we're all the star of our own show. We're all living our own dreams. And one thing I tried to learn a lot from covering all these coaches, and the thing I learned covering from Bruce Pearl was, live out loud and live your life to the max and be everything that you want to be, and without worrying about what others think or what potential hurdles will be there, because you only get to do this once. I remember I used to say to him, man, when are you going to wind down? When are you going to rest? When are you going to give this a break, man? Because he worked as hard in the off season as he did in season. He said, well, there'll come a time for that. When I don't know if he said wooden box or 6 feet under, but he made it pretty clear that he was going to be living his life as hard as he could to the fullest until someone decided that was no longer going to be an option for him.
Just incredible comments about Bruce Pearl, who
Well
retired
said.
yesterday. Absolutely. Mike, should be a really good one between the hedges this weekend. We look forward to catching up with you next Tuesday on the Aftermath and see what's next for both Georgia and Alabama. We appreciate it as always.
Yeah, big game for Sam Pittman, Notre Dame, Big game for Sam. There's a lot of big games. Guys, there's a lot of big games out there. Just
Big
a
time.
reminder, Penn
a
State,
big game
Oregon.
weekend.
This is
Yep.
the new college football world. I know we complain about it, but we've got quite a lot on our docket Saturday.
Absolutely. Mike, have a
thank
fun
you, guys.
week. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much. Mike joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline as he does each and every Tuesday here on Three Man Front because, you deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
We continue as we roll on from Social Taco here in Homewood. We've got a few guests that are here. Of course, the mayor, Don, Larry, he's hanging out. You're welcome to join us as we broadcast until 2. Social Taco and the Taco Tuesdays. Three-Man Front rolls on right here on Jocks.
It is 10:34. What a great conversation with Mike Griffith from DogNation.com. And Conrad, I want to get your thoughts, but I got a feeling that whenever that prediction is going to come out, I think he's leaning Georgia in the win, but I think this is going to be a very close game. Just my opinion. Mike hasn't given me any indication. Just based on his conversation with us today, I think it's going to be probably a very close Georgia lean in a win this weekend. on a prediction.
Yeah, no, I would certainly agree with that, and I think if the game was in Tuscaloosa like last year, he would probably lean a little bit more towards Alabama, but he's made it very clear this week and last week that he still thinks Alabama, regardless of what happens on Saturday, is going to have a good shot at making the playoff, and he likes, the way that Kalen DeBoer's turned them around. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to pick this under a one-possession game, like maybe a field goal type game. I told you yesterday, Pat, right now, if I had to give a score, I'd go 31-27 Alabama. So I think even, and you're really splitting hairs there either way, but I don't think you're going to see many people picking one side or the other to win by more than a touchdown.
Well, it's that season when you may be running the AC during the day, but the heat at night, and that stress on your home comfort system is why you need a Train. They've been named America's most trusted brand for 11 consecutive years, so you can count on the reliability of a Train to keep your home and your family comfortable for now and for years to come. So to go and find out more, go and visit Train.com.
All right, so we were unable to carry the Hugh Freeze press conference live yesterday because with the Bruce Pearl announcement, Hugh Freeze was about 2:30. But he did speak with the media yesterday. And let's start with cut 3, Conrad, in regards to what Hugh Freeze had to say yesterday there at his weekly press conference. This is what he had to say about SEC officiating.
There were quite a few that I disagree with. And I have great respect for our SEC office and the job that they do, and they have a tough job. It's a fine line. You want so badly to defend your team, your players, your university. It's a difficult position, and so I try to have respect for all sides, and it's certainly hard to just accept. My grandfather always told me life's not fair, get used to it and move on. So that's been my approach this morning with our team is we're going to move on to A&M as disappointing as I think everybody has their own opinion of the different calls made or not made in any given game. And I know everybody shares an opinion on those in this game, and I share mine. And, I've voiced those to the people that it matters to, but ultimately we can't do anything about it. So we got to turn the page and move on to A&M.
I think it's very craftfully said because he is in a tough spot. But I do it like I think about it in golf. I go out and I double bogey a hole. All right, it was bad enough, and whatever you want to blame it on, it was a bad lie or it was a faulty swing. Don't let that double bogey beat you on the next hole, right? So there's nothing you can't cry over the spilled milk now. You got to go in, and you're going to have 100,000+ people out for vengeance after what happened in that overtime game, multiple overtime game at Jordan here yesterday. You got to pull the bootstraps up and go do it one more time.
Yeah, I used to tell my kids when I coached them in baseball, do not compound an error by then not fielding it properly and then making a bad throw.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. It's what you do next. It's you got to flush it and you got to move on. Not to mention the fact that as a head football coach in the Southeastern Conference, and I know they are the face of the program, and they're the ones that's going to do the interviews and they're going to do the teleconferences and all that kind of stuff. But don't think for a second that the ADs at the whatever school, they're on the phone with the conference office. They're the ones that's going to carry the load in regards to the bitching and complaining.
Sure.
And to get the point across to the SEC. There's no doubt that John Cohen made his point directly to the SEC as quickly as possible about what took place in Norman, Oklahoma. And in the same respect, Hugh Freeze last night during Tiger Talk, he admitted, Conrad, that he got a call from Commissioner Greg Sankey about the calls that were made in the Oklahoma game, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, he said that, and look, I think it's a nice gesture from Commissioner Sankey, but according to Hugh Freeze, he called him and said he felt bad about the officiating. And while I think you appreciate the gesture, you also go, well, that really doesn't change the standings, does it? It doesn't change, how many wins or losses we have in those respective columns. So, no, I mean, it's a bad look for the SEC. I think we trust them to handle it and to do everything they can to not allow this to happen again. But I totally understand if you're Hugh Freeze, like y'all were talking about, you're in a tough spot, you want to stand up for your guys, and there probably is a part of you that feels like you got robbed.
I would not be surprised at all in that conversation with a phone call from Greg Sankey to Hugh Freeze, though, guys, that Greg Sankey probably said, I'm saying all of that to say, yes, I'm sorry it happened. It's unfortunate. Nobody deserves that. But, Coach, just out of carrying the message for the conference, we're going to handle this, but if you could help us not by compounding the problem and airing it out publicly, we would certainly appreciate it. And I think Hugh Freeze, he gets it, and you got to move on. And who knows? Maybe you do see that crew one more time. You hope it's not this season. You certainly hope it's not this weekend, which I don't think it will be, but you never know. Maybe those guys just had a bad day and they learned from it.
Well, and let's say Auburn goes 9-3, and they're one of those teams on the fringe of the playoff conversation at the end of the year. You don't think that Greg Sankey's going to get out in front of as many microphones as he can and say, hey, let's look at this 9-3 Auburn football team. Let's look at the quality of the schedule they played. And, oh, yeah, by the way, don't forget about that Oklahoma game that could have gone either way, especially if Oklahoma's another team that's in that conversation. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Greg Sankey take that approach of, I'll get you back later for this one. Don't worry.
I also think that where this game happened early in the season, Pat, I think that actually helps, and you can use this as guys, we made a lot of mistakes, whether it was a sacks or Jackson on some of the missed throws or not getting rid of it. We made some mistakes, special teams, all of this, the referees' calls, but we can leave no doubt in these games. We got to be better in those areas. If we can be better and check all of those boxes, the officials, we can chalk it up to, all right, the officials, if they make bad calls, but we can't leave that little room for error. We've got to make sure that we decide these things and the things that we do and don't leave it up to the officials and costing us a game.
Yeah, and for Auburn's schedule, you think about it, how quickly you really do have to flush it. I know that's a cliche that you use a lot in sports as a coach, but based on the fact that you got another top 15 opponent.
Yeah, you're not rolling back to Jordan Hare to take on Kentucky.
No, you're not. Or Mercer or Sisters of the Poor. I mean, you got to get rid of that immediately. And that's why I think John Cohen and the rest of the Auburn administration, they're handling things behind the scenes. But here's my next question is, how do you think the people in Oklahoma feel when they hear that the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference is calling Hugh Freeze? And we don't know exactly what was said. We just know what Hugh Freeze briefly mentioned last night during Tiger Talk. Because if you're Oklahoma people, because, I mean, I saw something a minute ago where Brent Venables is also pointing out things that wasn't called properly in the game that went Auburn's way, as opposed to what everyone thinks that this is a one-sided deal against Auburn.
Well, and there's every game you're going to have both sides and cut-ups and clips of things that they missed, but none of those highlights are making the rounds nationally or being talked about. So I understand it from Brent Venables. He doesn't want to take away from the effort and the win. And guess what? The win's not going to be taken away. So if I'm Brent Venables, I probably just move on as well and focus on my next game.
Well, one thing's for sure, Molly, on social media, some of the things that we said and played on the show yesterday, they have just been on just absolute wildfire in the state of Oklahoma. Just a lot of people just very upset.
Yeah, didn't know that Bob Stoops was an announcer for the Oklahoma radio. I'm just kidding. No, but yesterday we played audio from the Oklahoma radio broadcast. Basically, the clip went pretty viral, and a lot of Oklahoma fans not too happy with a lot of Auburn faithful and calling them some names like crybaby and get over it and stuff like that.
You're being kind.
Yeah, well. I try.
There's certain things we can't say on the radio, but
once again, I am logged into all of the social media, so if you say something, the notification comes right to my front page.
Yeah.
Well, if they want to look at class, they can look at their offensive coordinator, 30-year-old Ben Arbuckle, shooting the bird after they scored on that illegal touchdown.
Well, you're letting facts get in the way of them being mad.
I know.
You shouldn't do that.
I know.
You shouldn't do that at all. Molly was sending me some of those things last night, and we made sure that we were proper in our communication yesterday, what we were saying and how we were describing things. I mean, people are like providing transcripts on social media of what was said. It's just pretty funny stuff. Well, one thing's for sure, you need to call Abide Roofing because we're supposed to get some rain over the next couple of days, and do not let the rain automatically show that you've got some major issues on your roof. And I'm talking about leaking into your attic or into your crawl space area. You need to call Abide Roofing because they're going to give you a free consultation and estimate. Just call them at 205-941-6223. If you're ready to get started, call the professionals at Abide Roofing and they can help you. Or just go to their website, abideroof.com. At Abide, it's about more than just a new roof. It's about a team of highly skilled local pros that's going to bring their A game every single job. They work with precision, pride. They use only the best materials, and I'm a walking example of that because I am so happy with what they replaced my roof with because I had issues. Travis Lloyd got on my roof, dealt with my insurance company. I was able to get a brand new roof. So call Abide Roofing today, 205-941-6223. That's 205-941-6223.
One of the big games we're talking about coming up in the SEC this weekend, not only Alabama and Georgia, but also that Auburn-Texas A&M game. Andrew Monaco from the state of Texas talking Texas A&M and Auburn at the top of the hour as we continue here on Three Man Front live from Social Taco in Homewood. Come and join us right here in the square.
It is 10:49. Welcome back. This is Three Man Front live from Social Taco. The doors are opening as we speak. Candace is here wearing her Tennessee orange.
Oh, I'm having flashbacks to this weekend. I saw a lot of that Tennessee orange.
Yeah, you did.
There's only so many things you can do with Tennessee orange.
Yeah, but she wears it where?
She does. She's got the matching hat with the block tee.
Yeah, very, very much so. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to talk to the voice of the Texas A&M Fighting Aggies, Andrew Monaco, the voice of the Aggies. He will join the programs. We'll get a preview of the big game coming up there at Kyle Field between the Auburn Tigers and Texas A&M.
I know this weekend, last night, Monday Night Football, the NFL, all the college action over the weekend, there were lots of folks pouring into the Finnick. If you haven't tried the Finnick downtown, you got to. It's your front row seat to the best entertainment, whether it's football, whether it's live music, massive screens, explosive sound from every seat in the house. And they got a wonderful restaurant menu, certainly worth cheering for, with great wings, wood-fire grilled burgers. How about a great steak? They do it all really well. The shareables are outstanding. Scratch-made cocktails, your selection of all kinds of different beverages. You can do it there at the Finnick, and they got the 6-day schedule. Today is the only off day. Beginning tomorrow afternoon through Monday night, you're going to get live acoustic music Wednesday through Friday, 5:30 to 8. 10 o'clock bands crank up on Fridays, and then Saturday, Sunday, Mondays, all dedicated to sports. No live music to get in the way. It's the Finnick. You got to try it this football season. 1630 2nd Avenue South near Railroad Park.
So Nathan King from Auburn Undercover, he just posted a practice report on what he saw. And a lot of times, granted, you don't get to see the actual practice, but you do get to see warm-ups, and you get to see if certain players are wearing non-contact jerseys and if they're limping around or on their exercise bike, whatever the case may be. He says that they did not see cornerback Kalen Lee at all today during warm-ups. Cornerback Jay Crawford was back and participating in team drills. Safety champ Anthony, you remember his thumb issue?
Yep.
He took some reps at corner in Crawford's place. Center Connor Liu got an MCL issue, but he dressed out and worked in individual drills. Jeremiah Cobb, hip issue, but he looked good to go without any protective accessories. Wide receivers Malcolm Simmons and safety Caleb Harris were both in non-contact jerseys, but those are likely just precautionary. Defensive end Amaris Williams' shoulder had a brace on his left shoulder, but appeared to be just fine. Nathan King also reported that he saw running back Darrell Robinson, who's got the leg issue. Before heading out to practice, he had a big cast on his leg and walking with a crutch. So that gives you kind of an idea of the walking wounded for the Auburn Tigers against Texas A&M.
Yeah, now that we do get the coverage that we get, and some people may view it as limited, this is kind of the norm when you get into the meat of the schedule where you don't have a whole lot of days in between, and you give some of those guys a little bit of early rest early in the week, make sure that they're well aware of the assignments. But all of the training, anything like that, physical activity, at this point, it's shoulders up, right?
Very much so.
Because it's all muscle memory with everything else, so you want to make sure you have those guys fresh and ready to go Saturday.
And it goes without saying that we used to freak out back in the old days when you would see a player after the game walking in a walking boot.
Yeah.
But that's just customary now. Just try to take a little bit of pressure off their feet. We were talking about Bruce Pearl, who retired yesterday as the head coach of the Auburn Tigers. It was just very odd. But yesterday during PTI,
Oh, God.
as they were getting ready to sign off,
Wilbon.
take a listen to this from Michael Wilbon.
Happy trails to coaching for Bruce Pearl. The Auburn coach is stepping down to become an ambassador for the athletic department. In his place, the school gave a 5-year deal to his son, Stephen. Pearl is 65. He has had terrific teams at Milwaukee, Tennessee, and Auburn, which made the Final Four last season and in 2019. His decision comes about a year after Tony Bennett did the same thing at UVA. Pearl said he will not run for the U.S. Senate, something that had been rumored.
Tony, he become a divisive person, it seems to me, intentionally. And I hope there was pressure to just get him out.
What an idiot.
That's coming from a guy that has obviously probably never spent one single moment in the state of Alabama. And you make that kind of statement. He has no idea. Where's he been divisive?
Oh, by
Where?
Standing up for Israel? Standing up for Jews? Standing up for his faith?
Well, him and Michael Wilbon don't see eye to eye, so that means he's divisive.
I saw where Dave Portnoy called him out. Not Bruce Pearl. He called out Wilbon. And it said pretty much exactly what Conrad just said. So if it doesn't align with your beliefs, your views, your narrative, then that means it's divisive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, that's a lot of people's opinion on a lot of things now.
I didn't know that show was still on.
Well, I'll give Kornheiser credit. After Wilbon said that, Kornheiser was like,
well, Tony was like, he was always a great guest.
Yeah.
And Wilbon was like, yeah, used to be.
Yeah. The voice of the Texas A&M Fighting Aggies, Anthony Monaco, is going to join the program coming up next. We'll talk to him about the big win they had in South Bend, Indiana, as they get ready to host the Auburn Tigers coming up. We're live from Social Taco. Come on by and see us, have some lunch, talk some sports here on Jocks.